I'm gonna stay in the same track, but maybe change lane. I remember when I went to school and it was history class, and we were reading about the Mayans or the Aztecs, and this was just part of like how many games we've played as human beings, and how many sports and how many different ways of
Yeah.
fucking throwing or kicking a ball around we thought of. I remember in class we were talking about how the Mayans used to have this weird sacrificial bloody game where the winner, top scorer or something, or one winner from somebody from the winning team, he had the honor of his head had to get cut off for the next game, and it would be the ball or something like this. That would be the
Yikes.
ball that they're kicking
Oh
around,
my God.
so now we're here again, like with video games and with a bunch of different things, obviously a much nicer way, and we get to replay it, and it's even like we get to do more extreme things than like we get to visualize more extreme things than, like, let's say rugby players or football players, or almost as extreme, but without any of the injury, and we can go again and we can go again, and we can have battlefields, we can have war games, we can have all these things, way of the human mind playing against each other. um yeah, and I can see how this satire, like an older generation looking at the new thing and being like, no way, this is too stupid, or
Yeah.
like, this is too stupid, this is never going to become anything like a sport or anything like
Right.
that, you know. But yeah,
I mean,
here we are.
they thought that gaming had a peak and then died. So
Hmm.
at the end of, there was sort of an era where the home computer that they were releasing were just not very good, and it was sort of dying out. And arcades were kind of dying out, like Pac-Man and all this. There's this huge boom in the '80s in gaming. Before the NES really caught on,
Hmm.
Nintendo in a way changed everybody's minds, because when they released the NES, all of a sudden you could have arcade style gaming on your TV. And prior to that, a lot of the computers were getting kind of worse. There was a big battle, all these companies fighting it out over which games machine was going to be the biggest and all the rest of it. And there were a lot of articles at the time saying that gaming has had its peak. It's gone now. It was a fad. That's what people thought of it. And a lot of companies lost a lot of money. If anybody remembers, if you want to look it up, it's a really interesting story. You know the movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, yes, of course.
Okay, so Nintendo released a cartridge, a game called E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and it was a catastrophic failure. The game was awful. It was a big tie-in for the movie, and it crashed so badly that they ended up with so many unsold cartridges, they buried them in the desert in like New Mexico or somewhere like that. And the guy, there's a video where a guy went to find them, like an archaeologist, and dug up some of the cartridges. It was like landfill. And everybody was like, this is the nail in the coffin for gaming. Nobody's going to touch it ever again. Movie times, none of it. It's never going to be a thing. The history of gaming is really interesting, because I'm not saying I had a part in it, but I was certainly there viewing it as a gamer and just hoping it stayed a thing. And then it had like resurgences and renaissances, and then the internet came along and changed it all again. And now I feel like games now are so amazingly complicated, and so they're like movies. They're bigger than movies a lot of the time. And you look at something like Cyberpunk, which was like everybody was waiting on this game to come out. It cost hundreds of millions to make, and then it's like it doesn't really, it kind of flops or whatever. It's a big story, and everybody's like, this is crazy, but no one's saying this is the death of gaming. Back in the past, this is what they were saying. They were convinced gaming was going to die. We just see this game as a disaster, and it's a whole industry now. Industry persists. There may be titles that fail and succeed, but the industry is here to stay. Whereas in the past, it was seen as this fragile thing that could just fall over and that's it, no more video games. So it's fascinating to see it continue to grow and exceed expectations. And at my age, I still meet people who have no idea what esports is, and games. Well, you play games like for money. I'm like, yeah. And when I say I work in esports, they're like, "Oh, are you good?" I was like, "No, I'm terrible." Like, how do you make money if you're bad at the game? I was like, "Well, it's kind of my thing, being bad at games." And people tune in and they watch you play the games. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you're really good at them. No, because I'm really bad at them. Like, people can't get their heads around it. So it's an interesting industry to be a part of, because a lot of those old opinions stick around.
And how do you see esports? How has esports changed in the last 10 years from your perspective?
It depends which game you're talking about and which company you're talking
You
about, I guess.
can macro it or micro it as much as you want.
I think when it started out, and Johan will definitely feel this more than I did, it felt much more like a desperate struggle to get it going. And I felt like everybody was invested in this idea that we want esports to succeed, and passion from the fans and from the players and the devs was insane. And they were so excited that this thing was blowing up, and they really everybody wanted to ride on it. And it was so hype. And you really were desperate for it to succeed. And everybody wanted Dota to succeed. This is the only game I can really talk about. I don't play any other esports. I play CSGO sometimes, but the passion and that sort of almost fan-driven, that community drive behind Dota and all these other games, they've all become so big that I think we've lost control at the sort of my kind of level, if you like. It's all much too big business now. So I think it's gone from being this upstart thing that was super exciting to be a part of, and it felt like it was growing, and it was all communities and fans and all the rest of it, to now being much more of a top-down controlling thing that I feel like we have less of a hold on. That's how I feel. I feel like it's gotten away from us a little bit.
So an interesting question will be, what would happen if we decide to frame the Dota ecosystem like the CSGO ecosystem? Would Dota be better? Would Dota be worse? And in my opinion, it just depends on the money that is in TI. If we have a long battle pass that gives us $40 million last year, or 30 million plus, at the end of the day, even though it's extremely unhealthy that it's focused on one event, there is so much money that flows into the whole ecosystem of esports that it still is beneficial. Because there's just so much money.
But if you got rid of TI?
But if we got rid of TI completely right now, there is other tournament organizers that will pop up and decide to organize events throughout the year, like CSGO.
Yeah.
I'm sure We Play, ESL will create an alternative ecosystem. The tricky part is when you have both, but TI is very small. That's when it's tricky. So let's say, I know it's not the same, no? But like, I'm going to make a question for you, Johan, to try to get you involved. Mm-hmm. At what point TI is too small for you to play the whole year just for TI? If TI is $10 million, would you be playing qualifiers over qualifiers of qualifiers to get to TI?
No, it would be much less enticing. I mean, 10 million is a good number. If I hadn't won, like that would still be a fucking flabbergasting, like life-changing money, So for me, no.
But that's a 10 million total prize pool.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it would be, what would that be?
$1 million each.
5 for the winner.
Yeah.
So $1 million each. So like, what was that?
It's still $1 million. It's still worth, working your ass off your whole year if you want to get there. And again, I would choose this over other things if truly I wanted the money over other stuff, to have financial security. Like, yeah, it's still life-changing money. Of course, it would be worth playing for a year, but I would say if the prize pool, just as a player, and it's, yeah. It was when TI3 started, TI3 and TI4, it was the same vibe for me, honestly. Like, I didn't feel much different. So you're asking the wrong guy.
Okay.
Also, yeah.
So let's do the mathematics differently. If it goes $10 million, yes, the winners will get $1 million each, but the top 6 will be getting 80K. Or 60K.
Right. So
then you can play
you don't
whole...
think about that. Because you're winning.
Correct.
Bro, it doesn't matter. You're working 1 year, not because you're getting top 6. You're working 1 year because you're going to fucking win.
But if you do only 10 millions and you create another alternative like CSGO events, in CSGO events, you have a lot of tournaments that give you a lot of money throughout the year. Blast, I think in
terms of entertainment, in terms of everything, like that will basically be like having majors throughout the year. Mm-hmm. You can maybe have one that's then slightly bigger and means championship, international, whatever, I don't know. Then I think you could get a lot more out of your money, also as an like entertainment value, both for the viewer, as a player, everybody. The majors were done really well, I would say, like most of them, Shanghai major excluded, but that was amazing. Yeah, I wish we would have the same hype and the same quality and the same things around,
I mean, I think, the Kiev major came out the other day, the true side of that, which I hadn't watched in a couple of years. That was...
Yeah, with the Slacks text or whoever made them, it really reads like Slacks.
Right.
I don't know.
So I thought so too. 100% it was Slacks. And I'll tell you why. Because I looked at the Reddit thread about it, and he was in there defending the comments. And I thought, it must have been his shit. So I messaged him. I was like, I'm pretty sure you did those comments. He was like, yeah. But he did. He said he got one wrong. So it was said you'd come from the lower bracket. But he just looked at the bracket, and it was just, there was an upper and a lower, but there was no lower bracket. It was just the way it looked. like the tree leading in, he thought it was low bracket. That was the one mistake he made. But other than that, I thought the comments were really funny. I know you probably had a different perspective.
Yeah. 92% of the time, N0tail chooses to farm over doing the fight.
He's a funny guy. Yeah, I love Jake.